Hello and welcome to Cultural Apologists React for today, October 1st, 2024. This is an AI-generated podcast based directly on the writings of the Christian cultural apologists discussed. But like all AI, it can make mistakes. In the news today, here's a summary of the article. Escalating violence in Israel-Lebanon conflict. Israeli airstrikes hit several locations in Lebanon, including the refugee camp near Sidon, towns near the border with Israel, and Beirut's southern suburbs. At least 95 people were killed in Israeli strikes across Lebanon on Monday, according to the country's health ministry. The Lebanese army has withdrawn 3 miles from the country's southern border and evacuated observation posts at the border with Israel. UN peacekeepers in Lebanon can no longer patrol border areas due to heavy artillery fire from Israeli forces and Hezbollah. International response. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spoke with his Israeli counterpart, agreeing on the necessity of dismantling attack infrastructure along the border with Lebanon. The U.S. is sending a few thousand troops to the Middle East to bolster security and defend Israel if necessary. The UK government has chartered a commercial flight out of Lebanon for British citizens wanting to leave, while Canada has reserved 800 seats on commercial flights to evacuate its citizens. Other developments. 3 civilians were killed in Israeli airstrikes in Damascus, Syria, according to Syrian state media. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said Israel had informed the U.S. that it was conducting limited ground operations focused on Hezbollah infrastructure near the border. President Joe Biden urged against a potential Israeli operation into Lebanon and called for a ceasefire. Note, the article mentions a few key points about the conflict, but some of the details may be subject to verification. Commentary: The scourge of sectarianism, a global menace in the Middle East. As I ponder the escalating violence in Israel-Lebanon, Lamin Sanneh's profound insight comes to mind. Sectarianism is a plague that has ravaged the Middle East for centuries, but it is not unique to this region. It is a global problem that demands a unified response. The parallels between his words and our current crisis are hauntingly clear, prompting us to confront a fundamental truth. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not merely a local issue, but an acute manifestation of a far more pervasive and insidious malaise afflicting humanity. The brutal reality on the ground is stark. Israel's aerial bombardment has claimed at least 95 lives in Lebanon, while UN peacekeepers are powerless to patrol border areas due to intense artillery fire. The international community's reaction has been predictably fragmented, with Western powers offering support to Israel while cautioning restraint. Yet, what lies beneath this complex web of allegiances and rivalries? It is here that Sanneh's ideas offer a crucial perspective. In his book, The Quran, a reformist reading, Sanneh notes that the Christian West has long been aware that Islam is not solely a faith, but also a community with its own distinct character. This insight is particularly relevant in our context, as it highlights the ways in which religious and cultural differences are often exploited to justify violence. The binary mentality that pervades the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, us versus them, is a exemplar of this phenomenon. However, Sanneh also reminds us that comprehending the Muslim world necessitates a nuanced appreciation of history's role in shaping it. In his book, West African Christianity, The Religious Impact of Colonialism and Christian Missions in Senegal from the 15th century to the 20th century, he observes that historical experiences have left indelible marks on communities, influencing their relationships with one another and with the wider world. Similarly, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a product of centuries of colonialism, occupation, and displacement. At the heart of Sanneh's argument lies the assertion that sectarianism is not merely a local problem in the Middle East, but a global issue that demands a global response. The current crisis in Israel-Lebanon serves as one manifestation of this broader phenomenon, which has been fueled by nationalism, militarism, and intolerance. As Sanneh notes, sectarianism is a plague that threatens to engulf us all. In the midst of this chaos, President Joe Biden's call for a ceasefire is commendable, but insufficient. What we require is not merely a temporary truce, but a fundamental transformation of our global values and priorities. We must learn to prioritize peace over profit, compassion over competition, and understanding over animosity. The escalating violence in Israel-Lebanon serves as a wake-up call for us all, a stark reminder that we are part of a global community bound together by shared hopes and fears. And it challenges us to rethink our assumptions about sectarianism, to see it not as a local problem, but as a global plague that necessitates a collective response. Ultimately, the solution lies in recognizing the humanity that unites us all, regardless of creed, color, or nationality. As Lamin Sanneh so eloquently puts it, in order to understand the Muslim world, one must first understand the role of history in shaping it. By embracing this wisdom and extending our empathy to include those who are different from ourselves, we may yet find a way out of this quagmire, not just for Israel and Lebanon, but for humanity itself. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Cultural Apologists React. Be sure to come back tomorrow for a new take on the day's news from the standpoint of Christian cultural apologetics.